This is episode 19 of Chris Sweeney Talks To. Today I'm joined by Rizwan Wadan. Now he is a filmmaker, but he's also a Muslim. And I wanted to talk to him today about the controversy surrounding this movie that's just about to be released. Well, has been released some parts of the world, but is being released sort of generally at the moment. It's called The Lady of Heaven, and it tells the story of Fatima, who is the Prophet Muhammad's daughter. In the trailer, they bill it as Discover the Untold Story. Now, there's been a lot of controversy. Like I said, it's been banned in Pakistan, in Egypt, but in Britain, we've seen protests outside cinemas, and one cinema chain has now is refusing to show it. People are saying it's blasphemous. There's a lot of people going on TV talking about it, but I thought Rizwan was the perfect person to speak to, so we'll bring him in. How are you, Rizwan?
Good morning, man. Thank you for having me on. I hope you're keeping well as well.
I'm very well. It's great to see you. You're looking happy as ever. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the movie, you know, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but, you know, what's your sort of general sort of just off the cuff reaction to all the stuff that's gone on surrounding it, particularly the protests in the UK and it being banned from one cinema chain, them deciding not to show it Cineworld?
So I'm actually based in Blackburn, and some of the protests I believe were held there as well. And I'm in touch with the community there. We have a skills and training initiative for getting young people into the filming industry, actually. So that's what we've been quietly working on for about a year now. And so I started to respond to some of the WhatsApp messages, and I could sense that this was going to get sort of to the point where it kind of has. And, you know, working within the industry, you understand that the cinema chains are part of the distribution aspect of it, but it's the film industry as a whole has its ethics and principles, and it prides itself on freedom of expression and the rights for people to be able to tell stories. They may be controversial, they may offend people, but that's supported within the art form. So, you know, my stance on it was to advise people that, look, if you are going to protest, what you're actually doing is you're helping with the PR campaign for this film in a way. So, because if you think about it, Evil Dead was banned, I believe, Exorcist was banned. There's loads of films historically. Salman Rushdie's book was, people asked for that to be banned. And historically, we know as human behavior, if we're told not to do something, and I could go back to Adam, if we want to go back to Adam, may peace be upon him, and Eve, you know, they were told not to go near the fruit, not to eat the apple. What did they do? So it's you know, I understand as a Muslim that this is something that would be deeply offensive and it'd be hurtful to some Muslims. But is that how you're supposed to respond? I think the Muslim community and even the media outlets, the people that they are inviting to interview, they're not qualified within the filming industry. Even within, let's say, religious teachings and principles, if you are to, if you need to find, if you need some religious guidance, if you need to know how to do something according to your faith, you'll go to a priest, you'll go to an imam, you'll go to a rabbi, and they'll give, or if you need your health, you know, you want to check your health, you'll go to a doctor, you know, you'll go to a doctor, your car, a mechanic. If you want to build something, you go to but you seem to have all of these, not even experts, but people from within the Muslim community who are being interviewed in the media, not even playing in the hands of a narrative. They're not really helping the community to understand something. And one of the lessons for the Muslim community is for them to understand how to respond to something like this and how to behave. Because if, let's say, if you're a Muslim who opposes a film like this, then, you know, by protesting, are you actually supporting the PR campaign? Are you supporting the film? You know, it's now nationwide. People know about it, possibly globally now. Once it's gone nationwide within the UK, it's going to get picked up. So I think, you know, as a filmmaker, you know, we pride ourselves in being able to express ourselves and having that platform to be able to say what we want to say. And I think Muslims have not been able to utilize that platform because they're not involved in the filming industry, and they're not, you know, this is something that's an industry that we are not really involved in. And I think we need to understand that you could go to a cinema chain, and ask them to you know, stop screening the film. And I believe Cineworld has stated, and I just want to quote this from the Guardian newspaper today, I'm pretty sure that they've said, they said that Cineworld said it took the decision to cancel all showings of The Lady of Heaven to ensure the safety of our staff and customers, right? So where Muslims might be thinking, hey, this is a great win for them, but it's actually counterproductive because it shows that perhaps you are, you know, you made the cinema feel threatened. You know, what do you mean? What does the cinema mean by the safety of their, you know, staff and customers? And of course, There are some arguments where we have the right to protest, and if something, so there are films, I believe, said there are some Russian films were banned from Cannes, I believe. So we do know that. Look, we also protest as well within the industry against political ideologies as well, and this is happening right now. So some Muslims may say that this is a double standard. Then there are other communities that might be protected and how they're represented, and their views and opinions are they are protected under the sort of, not even human rights groups, but I think some Muslims feel that the filming industry protects certain groups and certain faiths over their religious ideologies and their political ideologies and their beliefs. Now, an argument from the industry's perspective would be that actually, when you make films, there are many films that are made to offend that offend the Jewish community and the Christian community. And let's take it to perhaps even from a Muslim perspective to one of the verses. I've sent a post, not a post, but I sent a message out to some of my members of my WhatsApp groups and just my connections, personal connections. And I reminded them of a verse which is in the Quran, and it's Surah Baqarah 285, to quote it. And this is a Yusuf Ali translation. And it states that the messenger believeth, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the messenger believeth in what had been revealed to him from his Lord, as do the men of faith, or the people of faith. Each one of them believeth in Allah, his angels, his books, and his messengers. And we make no distinction, they say, between one and another of his messengers. And they say, we hear and we obey. We seek thy forgiveness, our Lord, and to thee is the end of all journeys. Now, on this point, we make no distinction, they say, between one and another of his messengers. And we have seen historically, whenever there's been a cartoon, a publication, a comedy, stand-up show, these are countless over the years, of the mocking of Jesus, may peace be upon him, of Moses, may peace be upon him, of God, just generally, and other prophets, Noah. There's been so many cartoons. I mean, you could mention Family Guy, like Simpsons or whatever. If you could, and there's so many stand-up shows. You do not see Muslims making making no distinction. They're not going out there and protesting. They're not making a change me. They're not going out to the Christian faith groups and saying, hey, we need to actually stand in solidarity here together, because this is deeply offensive and we need to do something about it, or the Jewish community and standing with them, or, so it's kind of like, the way I see it is that the community is led by emotions. They're led by these feelings and sentiments, and then anger as well, and then these protests, and people, they don't know what to do strategically, and then they go out and do this. Another note within the industry is that it prides itself in pushing boundaries. So one of the things when we saw art form and the Renaissance, one of the first things that was, and I'm sorry, kind of not letting you step in here for a second.
Please continue, Rizwan. Please.
So one of the things within the art, as an art form, you see pictures of naked women, Venus, and So one of the first things that was kind of promoted was nudity, and that's kind of against modesty and within Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So from early on, there's always been a clash between religion and art form as well. And if we want to look at it progressing within this last century as well. People may not know this, but Pinewood Studios was founded by J. Arthur Rank. Okay, so now he was part of the Methodist Church, and he felt that Christianity wasn't represented or wasn't being represented in Hollywood movies as it should be. So he felt that he needed to make films that would represent the Christian values. And that's how he started going around making these movies and playing them in churches. And eventually he needed a space. And then they took on Pinewood Studios, and that's where it was founded. And that's in Ivor. And so the history of Pinewood Studios is very much closely linked to religion and Christianity and the Methodist Church, the Methodist movement. Now, later on, it's ironic that his children have gone and made films like the Carry On films, which are kind of against his views, and some of his family members started the Mecca Bingo chain, gambling. And so even within the Rank Foundation, there is like divisions. And this is, you can kind of see sectarian violence if you want to go back even historically 150 years ago. We've had sectarian problems within this country as well. So we know that people can be offended, people can take violent actions, but I'm digressing a little bit here, but when you come back to just the art form itself, there has been a clash between the arts and faith and religion. Now, we live in a society and a world which is very much connected through the visual medium. People are watching this visually. We've got these phones on our hands where we can watch and consume information. So if somebody makes a film, how do you respond? You know, and I think the message to the wider, you know, non-Muslim community, people who are British or English, I think it's about trying to understand each other and realizing, okay, you know, what offends a person, and where these comments are being made that, oh, you know, grooming gangs offend us and things like that. But that's a crime, man. That offends a Muslim. That offends me. I would like to see these people, the worst outcome for them to be, you know, punishable through the justice system, right? So we stand united in that. People who carry out acts of violence or carry out illegal acts against one another. So these are, you know, we hate these or abhor these, or you know, we stand united against these. So I think films that promote disunity, that's probably always going to happen. And I think the best way to respond to that is, if you don't like the way somebody's presented something, then perhaps present it in a better way. Learn how to deal with it through the art form. You know, if you've been offended by the way that a film's been made, could you make you know, could we invest in films that could tell your story? You know, like, I don't know, protesting, people should have a right to protest, but, you know, what's the outcomes that you can achieve from it within the industry? And I don't think that the filming industry will appreciate somebody protesting and saying, you know, that ban this film, right? But going back to it, I would like to know how some of the Russians feel about being banned from Cannes, actually. It's kind of interesting, because at some point, I believe those films, and historically where films have been banned, or, you know, we even Mein Kampf as a book was banned and it was made legal. So you know, it's a matter of time. Certain things will be banned for a period or an area, but not banned globally. And, you know, these people can still access these things. So let's say, for argument's sake, it does get banned in one area, but does it, you know, is it promoted elsewhere? Is it accessible elsewhere? Can people see it online? Can they get access to it? And in a nutshell, if you, from a protest perspective, from these protests, they've helped and as the executive producers of the film have said, that this could have been, you know, this is a great outcome, you know, for them, because now their film is being promoted nationwide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say that myself. I mean, I haven't seen the film, but I saw the trailer on YouTube, and I think it's got 3.2 million views, which is a sizable number. Because, got to say, last week I didn't know about this film, so, you know, it's caught my attention. But one thing I did want to ask you about was that there was an article on Asian Image, and it was titled "Presenting a Distorted View of History in This Way Cannot Be Free Speech." And it mentioned that the depiction of the caliphs Abu Bakr, Umar, and the Prophet's wife Aisha are unacceptable and highly offensive, and present a distorted view of history. And it also mentioned something which I found interesting, was the film also has been deemed racist in its portrayal as the main negative characters, who are the Prophet's closest companions, as they are portrayed by solely black actors. Now, what do you make of that? Do you think there is some license for a filmmaker to take historical events and add a spin, or you know, cast different actors from different ethnic backgrounds, as I'm sure you've done in your own work? I mean, are you a bit harsh here just because it's religious? You know, should the filmmaker have a bit of free hand to do the thing? And I think the film's been done with respect. I mean, from what I saw of the trailer, it's not a comedy, or they're not trying to mock anything. They're trying to make a serious movie, from what I can see.
So in terms of there are difference of views. The Sunni Muslims and their books and the knowledge that they take from, they don't believe that those the individuals being portrayed are black, actually. So they're seeing it as any negative character has been portrayed as or has been written historically as a black character. And we've had, unfortunately, within the community, I'm not going to, I'll be quite very honest, that there are racist elements within, culturally, that there has been historically systematic racism against the black community within various communities. And, I've been, this is something that needs to be addressed, and it has been portrayed in the film. So the Sunni element, or the Sunni group, they don't believe that they're black, you know. So this is something. And the other thing is that there's a difference of opinion here, and even many Shia clerics and many people who are from the Shia community are not supportive of the film as well. Now, whether, you know, the thing is that we are trying to oppose something within the filming industry. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is that the filming industry, or the film as an industry, is a machine, right? So Bollywood has got their machine. The Japanese and the Chinese have their machine. The Turkish have their machine. The Iranians have their machine. Saudis are now starting to develop their machine. And so these are little industries. And what's amazing about the filming industry is that you can create your own machine and have your own ethics and principles, or you could set up an organization that is going to be committed to promoting your culture and your values. So we've got the film. There are organizations from within the LGBT community that promote and fund the filmmakers that are telling stories from their underrepresented communities, or from the black community, and so I think one of the things which the Muslim or the Sunni Muslim community need to understand is that they just need to be involved in this industry and trying to go in and perhaps, you know, change another industry, you know, an industry that doesn't fall within, it doesn't uphold their values, it's not, you know, it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that so the criterion set by that industry isn't the Bible, and it isn't the Quran, or it isn't you know, the Bhagavad Gita, or whatever it is. Like, you know, to try and implement and ask them to change that, it's kind of like perhaps, you know, not going to happen, because that's not what they stand for, right? So this is why you've got the Christian there's an industry within America, and they make a lot of films. There's Christian movies, and there's a platform for them. So, you know, I think a lot of Muslims, they have this frustration, and it is commonly understood that if you see something wrong, you should try and stop it with your hands. If you see something, if you can't, then try and stop it with your words. And if you can't, then try and think bad of it at least. And I think what a lot of Muslims think that, you know, if they don't say something, then they're going to be questionable, right? They're going to, you know, so they didn't, when something like this happened, and it went public, and they should publicly make you know, an outcry against it, because they'll be questionable for that. But I think they need to understand strategically, actually, by you making this public, and a public outcry and a petition, are you actually helping the PR strategy? Because, you know, sometimes if you don't have something beneficial to say, then you should just keep quiet. But they've not understood that, you know. So this is something that's very important for them to learn from.
Yeah, because I think something that I've tried to watch various videos and read various reports and things like that, but I think it's quite hard to distill, and particularly the reporting. I think a lot of it, they're just taking that Muslims are outraged. The movie's awful. There's no in between, and there's a lot of in between there about what is the issue, why has it come about, you know, what way could we fix it, how could we go about building those communities or these bridges. It doesn't seem to have that. It just seems to be Muslim outrage, full stop, you know. And I think that's something that we're missing here. And you, like you're saying, there's probably a lot of people in your community that are saying those things, but it's just not getting out there. And for what reason, I don't know. I mean, that's above my pay grade.
Well, I mean, it is going to, like, I think now what we can do is learn from this. And I think even for individuals like myself, it is, because I am within the industry. I understand how it works. And in some ways, I'm a bridge between the kind of industry and what it stands for, and trying to also help develop and create our own kind of like industry and tell our own stories, and be in the middle here. Since I think we've known each other, I'm trying to deal with difficult subject matters, extremism and terrorism, trying to bring people together, dealing with the most. I always put myself in difficult situations, because I think, you know, that's where I feel the change needs to happen, or that's what I would like to kind of contribute towards, making things that are hard to deal with. And I think this is another opportunity for individuals like myself to reach out to the community, both the religious segments and those that are within the community, and consult them and help bring them up. And perhaps, you know, even with the segments within the non-Muslim community, I don't want to say far right or whatever, like people who just hate Islam, like, you know, try and have a conversation with them, try and go and arrange a Zoom call with as many of them as possible and start like trying to not mediate things, but just, I think once you have a conversation with each other rather than act on your emotions, I don't think that's that takes us far. Bringing it back to kind of like a lesson that I have, bringing it back to a lesson that needs to be learned, and I think it's from the pandemic. And I was out there during the pandemic, during the first lockdowns, and I was out there within Blackburn. I was out all over the 21 cities and towns, and this is during the first lockdown when everything was dead, and we were volunteering on the front line and documenting. And what we saw was that in that sort of time of crisis, when we didn't know if we would have enough food or that sort of a problem that we were in, that crisis, that pandemic, the hatred disappeared. You know, people were helping one another. You know, we forgot about like any differences, and whether you were, you know, rich, poor, whatever, it just, we were all in this sort of moment where we just wanted to help each other. And those that panic bought, even they got to reflect upon it when their food was probably rotten and whatever, because they bought too much. They must have been thinking to themselves like, yeah, we should have shared this, and, you know, had that self-reflective moment. And now we're coming out of this and we see these conflicts again. And now look, do we want to make a country that's more united? Do we want to make, you know, what sort of a country do we want to see? And of course, these sort of films are going to carry on. This is an age-old conflict within the sectarian aspects of like the Muslim faith. But we've also got sectarian history and violence within this country. And I believe in Beaconsfield, the NFTS is there, the National Film and Television School, is in Buckinghamshire. There's a church where over 150 worshippers were locked in, and the church was burnt to the ground. And every year there's a commemoration of this. So we've seen sectarian violence, then we've seen it on the streets with the IRA, and now with the backstop. And by the way, just bringing it back to the whole Uniting Communities campaign going around the country, we've only got Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland left. And in some really sad, twisted, ironic way, we're going back to Ireland, and because of the backstop, the Sinn Féin, the Good Friday Treaty has been ripped apart. So now we're kind of in this situation where there may be sectarian violence again because of like, you know, this sort of unified Ireland sentiment. So, you know, just because you see it in one's community doesn't mean it doesn't exist within your own community. Sometimes you have to look in the mirror yourselves and think, actually, we understand this because we suffered this on our streets before. We've suffered from this within our own countries. We've had this with Guy Fawkes and whatever else. We've had sectarian violence in this country. So it's not just unique. It's not just Muslims that are mobs, that you want to paint them as mobs, but, you know, it's kind of like, even when the language of the whole kind of protest that Muslims are mobs and this, that, the other. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I've seen protests for the Iraq war. Were they mobs as well? Like, you know, I've seen protests recently, anti-lockdown protests and what, you know. So whenever there's a protest, oh, let's just paint them as mobs and whatever else. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I will ask you about your Uniting Communities campaign a wee bit, because people listening maybe don't know about it. Very, very interesting stuff. But one thing I ask you about is maybe put in the spot a little bit. So in terms of this movie, would you go see it, or say it was on in the house or you came in and it was on the TV? Would you turn it off, or would you be happy to watch it? Because I would have thought, as a filmmaker, you might be interested to see what they've done with the film, but maybe I'm wrong.
As within, like, as a filmmaker, it's my duty to watch it, for sure, to look at it. And I have a young trainee who's Shia, and his name's Cameron. He's doing really well and he's from Blackburn. So we're actually going to go through this and look at it from a historical perspective, and then, you know, make notes and then take it back to the Shia scholars, back to the Sunni scholars, and kind of look at how accurate it is. Because one of the things that, if you're within an industry, you have to carry out research. It's, you know, this is something that you have to do. And also, you know, people need to understand that when the visual medium, like when it came about, when cameras and the cinemas came about, one of the first things that you would see in the cinemas was news. And also, even within the research and development of this, people used to be played images, you know, of certain like images of flowers, and how do people respond? Images of like poverty or you know, horrible images, to see how they react. So, you know, a lot of our research has been carried out to how the visual medium and imagery has an impact on human behavior. And then, you know, news was formatted. And then in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, we saw how advertising used the visual medium. to kind of sell products to us. And then we saw, you know, pornography take a rise massively as well. And then we saw in the cartoons, but we also saw in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, news take its kind of format. And if you watch Anchorman, it takes the mick out of it, but it's quite funny to see how we just want to hear bad news. You know, that's what we like. That's why the news is the way it is, because all we want to see, you know, we don't want to hear 1,000 firefighters have saved 1,000 kitties this year, you know, whatever. We just want to see who's dividing who's hating who, and what. So the thing is that it's unfortunate, but the visual medium is powerful. It's here to stay. And I think we need to understand that there are some powers that be that, you know, may want us divided, but there's also the internal demon within ourselves. And the person, the enemy, the greatest enemy that we have is within ourselves. You know, we're the ones that are ultimately going to act upon something, and we have to have better control of ourselves, whether we're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindu. We need to be just better human beings. And I get it that the movie industry and certain things cause an offense, but, you know, I learned this in nursery here, and it's a statement, and sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you, right? So it's important for us to just not, you know, try to be a part of a solution and try and work with each other, because that's the only way we can make a better community. We could represent our faith in a better way, and learn more about the filming industry, learn more about PR. If you want to respond to something, if you are part of these protests, if you do want to protest, if you want to make a change, you know, perhaps learn more about it, help yourself online. There's a lot of courses these days that weren't available. YouTube, there's many ways to understand how to approach a subject matter, and do it in a much better and more strategic way.
Yeah, well, that is one thing that you do, because I mean, we mentioned it just earlier, but your campaign, and if anyone's listening to this or they're on YouTube or they're online, if you type in "error in terror," you'll find you know, Rizwan made this amazing sort of public service
announcement video, yeah.
Film. How would you describe it, Rizwan? What's the best way? Public service film, or I mean, it's not. It's a very short. It's about 90 seconds to about 2 minutes. Is that correct? And it's a take. I don't want to tell you what happens, because that's the whole point of it, to watch it. But it's him sort of trying to put something back on this idea that all Muslims are terrorists. And it's very interesting, but it's trying to bridge that divide. But I was looking at some of the comments. You know, Nigel Farage did an interview on GB News about this subject of the movie, and he had various people on, and of course, you know, we know stereotypically the people that watch GB News are maybe leaning to the right and maybe not exactly pro-Muslim. But some of the comments, I mean, one guy said, the more we see them showing their true character, the better. I'm assuming he's saying them. Is he? You know, he means Muslims. And he says, another person says, how come we give in when they get offended, but when they offend us, i.e., with the grooming gangs, we're not allowed to say anything in our own country? I mean, there's all these types of things that people are saying online. And as someone else said, I'm tired of hearing the lies and misdirection over the religion. More people need to wake up. You know, and these people are all talking about Islam, and it's you just wonder, why is there this sort of automatic sort of hatred or bitterness? You know, the fact that some Muslims didn't like a movie, why are you then criticizing the religion as a whole? There's this disconnect that we seem to be having.
I've got a solution for those individuals that are making those comments. I've got a very good solution for them. So those individuals. So one of the individuals you mentioned has stated that, you know, regarding the grooming gangs, and another one's talking about the true colors. Whoever you know, those individuals, what they need to do is, there's probably a local mosque or a mosque in their region somewhere, a community somewhere, even online. Reach out to an organization, reach out to somebody who's Muslim, who are active, and see, basically offer to work with them. Actually, try and work with them to address your issues, because, you know, I get you're frustrated, you're angry, just like, you know, I am, just like every Muslim that I know is. And I believe that you'll find the support. And even, like, for example, these individuals, if they reached out to me, like personally, if they reached out with the handles, I will try and work with them and see how we can address that situation.
Well, I'll do that. Well, what I'll do is, I mean, I will actually put that under the comment. When this video goes live, I'll put that under the comments, but you can carry on. I mean, obviously, I'll tell them to start at this point, but yeah, well, you know, let's put that together. It's a good idea. You know,
words, you know, it's venting, right? So, you know, we're frustrated, we're angry, we don't know what to do. It's difficult. One of the things that's unique about the British public, and you see it on the train and the tube, is that we just don't like to communicate with one another. Somebody's got their book, there's just like that, and we don't communicate with one another, and we don't want to offend people, right? So, and I get that. So what happens is, because we don't want to offend someone, we don't want to go and share our views with them, and we keep it bottled up. Don't keep these things bottled up, right? The best people that you can address these concerns about Islam and Muslims, guess who it is? It's the people that follow the belief and the Muslims, right? So if you want to deal with that problem, work with them, right? Go to a mosque and see if somebody wants to work with you. And some mosques are more active than others. So I might be sending you somewhere and then they might not have an active mosque. And this is something that we're trying to change as well. And I think mosques are changing. They're getting their YouTube channels, and the younger generation are a bit more active. And, just work with one another, because ultimately, in your neighborhood, if we're hit with a pandemic again, you'll find that it's those mosques that were basically going out giving food to the vulnerable. Those mosques were part of the council's kind of, or the government's little food hub initiatives, and they were going within their network and helping one another. So you've seen that. Like, if you've seen that, you know what they stand for. Somebody has probably been helped by somebody within the pandemic who's a Muslim, guaranteed. Like, that's just like, it's not far, because we've documented all of that. And by the way, the Erin Terror campaign, we've moved away from that whole language, and I've kind of matured over as well. And it's uniting communities. The campaign is all about uniting communities. It's not about, yes, there's an error in terror. There was a smart play in words there, because, you could see the error if you take the T away. So, but the reality is that once we made the short film, we could have gone around the festival circuit, but I was advised by Hugh Whitaker, who's the CEO of Panavision, one of my mentors. And Panavision's you'll see their logos at the end of many movies, and they have the most beautiful lenses. And now, he advised me, he said, look, don't go down the festival circuit. You need to go and take it around. And I had this concept of taking it to the people. And this is where we're going around the pubs. And we were doing that over the last 5 years, right? So we started about 5 years ago almost now. And so we were so after winning like a prize at the BFI for a film at a film festival, we realized that actually we need to document this. And the short film is part of a bigger film and a research project. And we've been documenting that for the last 5 years. All of our journey has been documented. We have over 300 or 400 terabytes of data of the, and that's a lot of the journey. Yeah. So right from the concept development to the struggle of trying to get the funding, to the problems within the community, to the problems within the counterterrorism teams, approaching them, trying to get support, to the mosques and the churches and the synagogues, and basically the whole journey of making it, the pre-production, the production for it, then the journey of like the festival circuit, the BFI, the whole aspect of our journey was documented, and then going around to the pubs, eventually to try and release it on the 23rd of March, which was going to commemorate the Westminster attack, because that's when I decided to make it. Lo and behold, it becomes the lockdown, and our documentary team's out and about already. So whilst we were still out and about, we just shifted our focus on the Muslim community. And we thought, okay, if the Muslim community is accused of being extremists and terrorists, and is accused of all of these, hidden agendas and the enemy combatants and all of this narrative, then let me just, volunteer on the front line with these organizations and stay out with my team, like you would, like wartime photographers and wartime documentary filmmakers stay out in a time of a crisis. I felt it was a duty upon myself to do that. I contacted pretty much every Muslim and minority film and production channel and TV channel. None of them had any of their frontline camera teams. It was only BBC, ITV, and a few people. And I remember in the first lockdown, BBC Birmingham was down to just 3 producers to run the whole, so we were out. So we stayed out before the lockdown, before the official lockdown, to shift the focus of our cameras on the Muslim community and the organizations and the businesses in Leicester, what they were doing and how they were helping the elderly and the vulnerable, because people were panic buying, they couldn't get any food. So we were documenting that. And we stayed out throughout the whole pandemic across 21 cities and towns, this documentation. So we know what the Muslim community stands for in the time of the pandemic. We know what it stands for. So all of these accusations, honestly, if you just take a look within your communities and you have a sincere intention to possibly put an olive branch out yourself, or just reach out, you'll find that your views and opinions are shared. Your sentiments against grooming gangs is shared. Your hatred towards people who want to, carry out violence and the mobs, it is shared. So, what you've got to do is kind of just I don't know, man, just be a bit more loving. Maybe you need a hug, man. Maybe you need a hug. I get it. Like, we all need that, and we've gone through a difficult time. We've probably got so many problems. There's problems with like things going like petrol's at £2, man, a litre. We've got so many problems with economy, opportunities, and lack of opportunities. And sometimes it's easy to vent. You know, you look at people pointing fingers, and it's easy to vent, but you know, whenever you point, you've had these fingers pointing back at you as well. So I think, you know, I've digressed a little bit there, but just, you know, the main point of the Uniting Communities campaign is to unite people, right? We call it a united kingdom. And historically, we've been so divided. Scotland, Wales, wars, battles, War of the Roses. Come on, like, history is there for us to know that we're not all going to get along. But
yeah, absolutely.
If we're gonna live together now in this modern era where we don't have the challenges of food, right? Because food was, I think, what, 300-400 years ago, if you had a pineapple, you were the richest person. Like, now you can go to a bloody Aldi or something, or a Tesco or a Waitrose and get an pineapple, right? And all the fruits. We're living richer than any king maybe 200 years ago, potentially, even in a council flat. Like, we've got so much to be grateful for, and I think that's something that we want to push out. Positivity, want to push. So Uniting Communities is about uniting us on understanding one another, but also appreciating what we have, being grateful for the opportunities we have, and to unite us to build better communities. So the Aaron campaign, you know, it may have sent me in a journey, but on that journey, I've matured so much. I think I've learned so much. I've come across so many wonderful people. And although the lens was focused on the Muslim community at first, what was unique about this was that we found that this organization is working with this Christian organization, who's working with an atheist organization, who's working with a Jewish organization, who's working with the council, who's working, you know, so it was just like our documentation is really not just about the Muslim community. So when people say, oh, there's just this Muslim propaganda thing, it was just honest. It was just like, let's put the camera out. Yes, I've got access into the Muslim community, but it really shows how Muslims form a part of society and what they stand for. So when I see these comments, I know clearly that these people haven't gone around, they haven't gone and reached out to the Muslim community themselves. They can do that. You know, if you're refusing to do that, then perhaps, you know, you don't want to be, I don't want to say that you're part of the problem, but you don't want to be part of, you don't want to unintentionally be a part of a problem that's keeping us divided. You know? Yeah,
no, totally. Well, I mean, you've been very, Rizwan's been very modest. I mean, he's been involved in very big movies, and he's well known in his industry. But I won't embarrass him by giving you full CV. But if you go online, you'll be impressed. He's no mug, shall we say? But one thing I want to ask you, just to bring it back to the film industry and being Muslim yourself, has that held you back at all? Has it helped you? You know, is there any impediment with a Muslim person working in the mainstream sort of movie industry or filming industry, or is that a positive? You know, sometimes where they're looking to recruit people from different backgrounds.
Yeah. So now, as I mentioned, we are we've run a pilot project within Blackburn. We're calling it the Step Up Hub at the moment, but Pixelite Pictures, our company, has invested over £277,000. You know, and we're investing more this year as well into the project. And we are, you know, I mean, I don't want to just promote what we're doing, but just.
Oh no, I mean, I'm asking you, so go for it. No, go for it.
No, because you know what we want to. There's a shortage of there's a skill shortage. But let's get back to the history of the lack of representation within film. So we know that at first, you know, the Black community they started to get their representation, and with Spike Lee, and you know, you've got a lot of you know, the Black community has really done really wonders within the industry. They've broken through and they made some amazing contributions. But you know, now what we're seeing is that as a Muslim, yes, there isn't the sort of representation, but it's not. Okay, let me quote Sarah Bradshaw here, right? So Sarah Bradshaw is one of the exec producers on Pirates of the Caribbean. She's a lovely lady. She supported me with the Aaron Terror campaign as well. And when I met her, she said, look, Riz, it's, you know, people could blame the industry for kind of being sort of, there is nepotism, but let's say whitewashing, or there's loads of it's just white people or whatever. But the reality is, she said that if we are putting a advert up for a DOP or a director, but we're just getting, you know, 90 individuals that are white and extremely qualified, and we're just getting 5 or 10 people that are from different communities, we're going to be investing they're going to be investing 200 million pound in the film, and the budgets, and so it's not their fault for that industry to remain white centric, because that's the talent that's coming through. So I know historically from the Muslim community that we've not been pushing our children to be within the arts field, arts and sort of the film industry for sure. But that's sort of kind of changing now, because I think there's two folds, right? So because we come from a generation where we've been taught to be engineers, doctors, surgeons, and all of these sort of jobs. And if you don't become an academic, you'll go into a business and you'll have a shop or whatever. And I think I've discussed this before, and I might have mentioned this before, but now we're starting to see that there are opportunities. The industry is changing. I think the Black Lives Matter movement did push the industry to start even putting even more kind of job roles and opportunities for members from diverse communities to come on board. Women in film have had a massive underrepresentation, right? So there's like, women have notoriously been not involved, like they haven't had these sort of upper end jobs, higher end jobs, and now that's changing as well. The other thing is that there's a massive skill shortage within the filming industry because of the bottlenecking during COVID, and streaming is at an all-time high. Like, so people just, I'm guilty of it, but you just binge watch a series like Obi-Wan. Like, I'm sure most people who are Star Wars fans are done with it already. So it's kind of like, you can't produce the content fast enough. So if you want to be able to do that, then you need more crew, more teams. And that's why we're seeing a massive rise in production across the UK, new studios in Scotland, in Reading, in Hertfordshire, there's like there's the MBS Eastbrook studios. And so Pinewood's getting this expansion, and, so there's this massive growth, right? But who's going to fill the skill shortage? So this is where there is a phenomenal opportunity for those from minority communities. There's a phenomenal opportunity to tell our own stories as well, because, if you are a Muslim filmmaker and a writer at this time and age and the era we're in, because there's a demand for diverse content and diverse stories, there's a great opportunity for you to be able to pitch your concepts or make your stories and to do that. So coming back to, what can we contribute? So within Blackburn, we've set up this initiative, and over 277 people applied to the initiative last year. 58 individuals went through the workshops. 58 people actually turned up, and we gave them one face-to-face guidance and support, and just to filter through who wants to remain a part of the project. 38 individuals went through, I think, 22 workshops. These workshops were practical and theoretical and practical. And then we took them through 30 projects, which were end to end. So from concept development, pre-production, production, and post-production, using red digital cinema cameras, using all the sort of cinema workflow, cinema lenses, all the sort of technical, departmentalized approach of making a promo or a film. So basically, having about 25 to 30 people in a film, which you can make an independent, short film or independent feature film with that sort of a crew and that technology. And so we did 30 of those projects, and 9 individuals gained employment from that project, from our pilot project.
Brilliant.
The proofs, and now we've got a relationship that's being built with UCLan, with Ravensbourne University, approaching NFTS and working with the rental houses and consulting the British Society of Cinematographers, the GBCT, so the other guilds and the boards to try. And today I'm going to ARI at their event to kind of, look at this pilot project, look at the need, look at the problems. I'm sure this conversation is probably going to come about at the ARI event, because I'm sure they would have heard about it, and I'm going to be probably one of the only Muslims, and they're going to say to me, "So Riz, so." And so
we've had good practice. You at least now you've got your talking points when you get there.
I think so for us as well. I went through that journey, and I'm trying to help create an initiative and a kind of sustainable entity that could contribute towards the industry, nurture talent, tell our stories, uphold our values as well, and really help to, of course, to help to fill the skill shortage as well, but to nurture the talent that's going to be able to tell these diverse stories. So we're trying to become part of the solution. So an entity that when I first started out that I needed, so that when I had my ideas that I want to get involved in the filming industry, and I bought myself a little camera, and I had my vision that I want to become like an entity that I needed, and at that time, like, so somebody like myself with, you know, somebody who has a desire to get into the industry at whatever level they're in, that they could come to us and they'll find the guidance, the knowledge, the resources, the technologies, the ability to train and have access to it, and to be able to then eventually, God willing, to be funded as well to tell their stories. So,
yeah, well, I mean that's a great thing. I mean, if the Lady of Heaven is not someone's bag, they don't like it. Like you say, you can make your own movie, you can make your own show, you can put your own side out there. That's the great thing about this, isn't it? It's not one thing cancels everything out. If you don't like that, that's fair enough. Then, you know, pursue your own thing.
Now you'll make a film. So if you know, so from what you're saying, you know, I agree with you. To make your, you know, you could put out your own ideas, your own concepts. But imagine you're asking for something to be banned, but then you want to make something out there, and then somebody says, "No, I want that banned." So, you know, how are we going to play this? Because we are moving towards a world where really, quite frankly, anything goes. You know, really, it's freedom to do whatever you want, and so that comes with its advantages, and for some people, it's disadvantages, or, you know, and for some people, it's cons, right? So you're never going to live in a world where everyone's going to agree with one another. So we've just got to find out where we are now and find ways to actually get along and work with one another.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a great talking to you, Riz. Great catching up. Thank you so much for your time. I'd urge anyone to go online and check out Uniting Communities. It's all online, and you can watch the short film. I don't want to say too much because it's got for a short film, it's got a good twist. So I want you to go on there and watch it and enjoy it. But thank you so much for your time, Riz. I hope we'll share the bit here, let people hear from a Muslim filmmaker, someone involved in this debate, and not people just sitting in their home, just typing away and not being aware of the situation. So thank you again.
The one thing I would like to leave with is that if you see Muslims on the media that have been invited, please don't take them as the ultimate representatives. Mostly they're not qualified. Usually they are not the best people that have been invited on. Sometimes you can see from some of the interviews that it's just a rant. The Nigel Farage interview was really sad to see that, because there was just no progress, and Nigel has an amazing audience that needs to be reached, and they need their concerns heard and addressed, and also a solution for those concerns. They need to feel that there is, and I think there is a solution for those concerns, but they're not being able to reach out with the Muslim community, that there's something keeping them separate and divided, and I'm hoping that we can unite that. And once we get that working, maybe there's a time of peace ahead, you know?
Let's hope so. Let's definitely hope so. Well, thank you again, Riz. Take care, my friend.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.